it's Dawn from Dawn's Dirt. Dirt can mean gardening, dirt can mean animals, dirt can mean farming, dirt can mean politics, dirt can mean religion, dirt can mean anything we want it to mean. And I am so excited about this episode today. I'm here with Mike, and Mike is an urban farmer from Knoxville, Tennessee, and his farm name is Chef Harvest Farm. And so there's a little bit of a mouthful there. And Mike, I see you in your shed, and I see your greens cutter in the background, and you've got this crazy farmer hat on, and you're already a character. I know it. And so this is going to be a great hour. So welcome to the show here today.
Yes, ma'am. That's me, also known as Chef Mikey.
Nice. I love it. So you're an urban farmer. And so can you tell us, what does that mean? What's an urban farmer? I know what it means, but my listeners might not know what it means.
Yeah. So, it can obviously refer to farming in a city, which I do. It also can just some people are considered urban farmers, but they live in rural communities. Just their farms are super small, kind of like backyard scale commercial farming. Basically, I started all this in my backyard. I knew nothing about gardening at all. I just built a little raised bed out of wood, and that's how it all started as a chef. And I wanted to grow some tomatoes and garlic, and it just got out of hand, And so urban farming for me, I'm kind of in the suburbs, but a lot of urban farmers have multiple plots, So I have 2 plots. I lease, I grow a lot of it in my backyard on about I own 1 acre, but there's a house in the middle. And so the garden is a quarter of an acre in my backyard. And then I lease about an acre at somebody else's house that's they own an 80-acre homestead in what's called the Knoxville urban wilderness, which is another cool little urban treasure here in Knoxville. It's 10 minutes, and not even, probably a 7-minute drive from my other plot, and you're in downtown Knoxville. But when you're at the farm, it feels like you're in the middle of nowhere. So it's this urban wilderness, and it's hundreds of miles of bike trails, really, is kind of why it exists. Huge mountain biking enthusiast area. And this guy just lets me grow vegetables there in exchange for vegetables. I just drop veggies on his front porch every week, and that's it. I pay the water bill.
I love it. And that's why I'm doing this, is because that's why I'm doing my show. That's why I've got Dawn's Dirt going, is because I want people to know is that you can grow a garden. You can grow wherever you are. You don't need a lot of space. You've got a fair chunk of space, but you've made a little business out of it. And so you're growing predominantly vegetables, I'm assuming.
Yes. So that was a big thing. When we bought this house, we just knew that we wanted a little piece of land so we could grow our own food. That was the goal. We didn't really know what we wanted to do. And we started with bees, honeybees, and I learned quickly that it's really hard to make any money off honey. And, just through the research I did, I found that on a small piece of land, the best way you can make money is vegetables.
You're 100% correct. I'm on an acre of land right now, and I'm doing a chunk of money this summer off chickens. But we just kind of met here. I found you on the internet, and we just kind of met here. Do you know much about my history?
Nope. I watched a couple of your podcast episodes today.
Did you? Okay, cool. So I was actually a vegetable farmer, which is why I'm so drawn to you. Is I was a vegetable farmer for many, many years. So I had a 36,000 square foot greenhouse, and I did 20 acres of garden. But I was actually part of a group called YYC Growers. They're no longer, unfortunately. And yeah, it was a group made up of, it started off with a group of urban farmers, just like you, growing vegetables in their backyard and making a living at it. And so I was one of the bigger veggie farmers out in the country, but still that's where the roots were. And so there was people in our group that made a living off of just growing in backyards in the city of Calgary. And so are you making a living at this? Tell me about your business and tell me what's going on with that.
I haven't had a job in 5 years. just growing veggies in my backyard. I mean, I got a YouTube channel. I make money off YouTube too, so I can't lie about that. But so yeah, I mean, I guess like in vegetables, last year was really close to $100,000 in revenue. I think it was like, well, it was like 97,000, but I think 10,000 of that was grants. So it was like 87,000 in actual revenue from vegetables. This year, I mean, we'll definitely get over $100,000. It was also like last year, um, the leased plot that I grow on was brand new, so it was like a big learning experience. Had to manage two separate properties, not to mention the investment that had to go in over there. It's basically just a field, you know. So a lot of money had to get dumped into that, and just like figuring it out, you know. So figuring out how to make money managing the two properties is certainly a challenge. But I mean, off that, I mean, I think the potential to do $250,000 off that amount of land is not unheard of. Um, you know, when we're talking like a little bit around an acre, I guess. You know,
Yeah.
yeah,
And that's the beautiful part is you're providing for your family, and you've got your house, and you've got your, and this is, you don't have a job, but this is your life, and you're a farmer. You're an urban farmer. You are growing food for people, and you are a farmer, and it's who you are. Even just I for the listeners that are listening, just listening, I wish you could see you, Mike, because yeah, you look like a farmer. You've got the stuff. I keep looking at your greens cutter in the background. It's a little device that you use, and you put a drill on it, and that's how you harvest all your greens.
that's right. And I mean, the majority
Yeah.
of that revenue I just mentioned comes from salad greens.
Do you remember the toilet paper wars of 2020? Are you worried about being prepared in an emergency? Are you tired of being a slave to the corporations we purchase from? It's time to take control. Become ungovernable. Take your food system into your own hands. Hi, I'm Dawn, a coach dedicated to helping you live like grandma used to. Self-reliant, resourceful, and prepared. Whether it's raising chickens, growing a garden, canning your own food, or even milking a cow, I'll teach you how to thrive and survive in the space you have, big or small. We can even potentially make some money off your homestead. Visit Dawn's Dirt today to book your free jumpstart call. Together, as a team, we can get you self-reliant and ungovernable. We, the people, have the power to take back control. Remember, if you give a man a fish, he eats for a day. But if you teach a man to fish, he eats for a lifetime. Let's build a better future and a community, one skill set at a time. Okay, so you predominantly do salad greens, but you do a few other things. Do you have a greenhouse?
Yeah, I tried to record this sitting in my greenhouse back there, but I couldn't get like the hotspot to work on my phone. So I just ran in here. I'm in my basement right now. This is like the basement is like the wash pack area. I'm sitting at like my seed starting bench right now. There's a grow room right there. And then over here, I've got like 4-bay commercial sink with a greens bubbler, drying rack, 2 commercial refrigerators, and like a whole packing station where we pack the vegetables. Right outside this door right here is underneath my back deck. And there's a refrigerated trailer under the back decks, and so I just pull that out when I go to a farmer's market or something, back it back in, and then in my backyard back here I've got 5 Farmer's Friend caterpillar tunnels.
I love it. I've seen some of your YouTube videos. They're amazing, right? Like you are growing a lot of food for people. So you sell predominantly at farmers markets, or where else do you sell?
Now restaurants.
Restaurant sales has been your go-to. And see, on my farm, farmers markets was more of my go-to, and restaurants, I'll be honest, and I shouldn't say this to you because with the word chef, I'm assuming that you were a chef at one point. So yeah, so I got a little annoyed selling at the restaurants, because they wanted a little of this one week and not enough of that the next week, and it was a little unpredictable. So I like the farmers markets because you could, and I really like the farmers market too because you could shake the hands of the people that you're feeding, and you built relationships with your customers. I'm such a people person that I love that part of it. So yeah, amazing. So interesting. So you are packaging and hosting your vegetables, or holding your vegetables in your basement and in your backyard and growing them, and made this little business out of it. Do you have staff? Do you do this alone, or do you have staff? How do you run that?
Yeah, So, I mean, we're just like coming out of the super busy time of the year. Like May and June are just like absolutely nuts. So like in May and June, basically I had 5 people working for me. But 2 of them were temporary. Or yeah. So I have Max who's worked for me for about a year and a half. And I mean, she stuck through me with me through the winters, like when it's super slow, and just worked like 10 hours a week, whatever I could give her. She's got like some side hustles, you know. And then Zach is like 19, I think, but he started working for me when he was 15, and he helped me build the whole farm, really. Like, so I'm after my career as a chef, I worked selling restaurant equipment at K-Tom Restaurant Supply. It's a huge like restaurant equipment dealer. And so I sat in a cubicle with Zach's father, and that's how I met Zach when he was like 15. So I still was working, but Zach would come over on the weekends, help me with stuff. I'd pay him from my paycheck at my job, and he still works here today. And that was like 5 years ago. And then I I fired some dude earlier this year, so I just hired some other guy that I knew from the farmers market. He started about 3 weeks ago, and he's working out great. I love him. I've known him for years. So,
Love it. And that's the biggest thing that people need to know is, on a small scale farm, like you can't do it alone. Like it takes a lot of work, it takes a lot of people, and it takes a lot of hands, to make that food go. And when people buy things in the grocery store, I don't think they quite understand what it takes to grow a head of lettuce or to grow a bag of salad greens or to, grow the carrots and things like that. And so yeah, I'm enthralled with what you're doing. So it's really, really cool. Yeah, so how did you go from, so you were a chef at one point and then you were doing some sales, but why did you even want to get into, farming, vegetable farming? How did you make that click one day?
yep. So, I guess I have a unique background. I grew up like in Portland, Maine, working at restaurants. Like, there's a really good like farm to table scene in Portland, Maine. And so I kind of grew up in that atmosphere where I'd see the farmers just coming in with trash bags full of veggies and dropping them off, to the cooks. And then, years and years later, life went on. I ended up in Vermont, and Vermont's even like more so. Like, I mean, there's it's hard to find a McDonald's in Vermont or any type of corporate anything. It's a cheese state, right? Vermont cheddar cheese, and it's just farms everywhere. It's like almost saturated to do what I do here. But I got a job working there at they call it the Essex Culinary Resort and Spa. So it was at one point owned by the New England Culinary Institute and run by the students and teachers. And then a corporation bought it. But a lot of the culinary teachers stayed and became the chefs in the restaurants. And so on that property, there's basically a market garden out back where they employed 5 full-time gardeners and supplied some of the produce for the restaurants in the resort. But I really got to see it. And then the way I ended up in Tennessee is that company partnered with Dolly Parton's company, and they moved me down here to open the Dollywood's Dreammore Resort in Sevier County, which is just like a couple towns away. But that town is like it's an amusement park, it's like working at Disney World, or like a Disney World resort. So it was like culture shock, not to mention the whole moving to the south from the north thing. But so then somehow I just like ended up being an amusement park chef, and I was like, oh man, this ain't for me. I need to get out of here. And that's how I ended up working at the restaurant equipment store. And then that wasn't it either. Like sitting in a cubicle, I was like, man, fuck this. So then I just started gardening, and then one thing led to another. And I'm sure you or people that are listening know who Curtis Stone is, the urban farmer. And then, it was like this guy's growing veggies in his backyard and selling them and like making money. And I was like, dude, I'm pretty sure I could do this. And that just kind of became my goal. A lot of everything I do, I learned from Curtis Stone and many other people too. But he's obviously hugely inspirational for me at that time. And I guess that's the short story of how this all kind of came to be, how I ended up in Tennessee being an urban farmer. Just really, I just learned all jobs suck, and I just wanted to be outside.
And you know what? I couldn't identify with that more. So unfortunately, I had to sell my farm a year and a half ago, and it's been sad. Like I was a second generation vegetable producer, vegetable farmer, and it was really hard. And the hardest lesson I learned was last summer. I took my first job in 20 years, and I'll tell you, I got fired, and it's because I forgot to leave my brain at the back door, and all I know how to do is farm. Like that's what I love to do, and that's why I'm so attracted to what you're doing is because you're growing food and you're selling it to people and providing that loop, providing that, like, you're the essence of what local food is. And so yeah, I really identify with that. And once you do this, it's not a job. Like you said, you haven't had a job in 20 or in how long did you say, 5 years? Yeah, you haven't had a job in 5 years, but yet you are working. I mean, I was a vegetable farmer. I'm sure that you are working more than 40 hours a week, right? More than you were working in the cubicle, more than you were working for any other job you've ever had in your life. But it's not a job. It's just what you do and what you love. And that's what I'm doing now too, right? Once you're a farmer and getting your hands in the soil and growing things and raising things and doing food for people, it's not a job. It's just who you are. It's your identity. And so that's really cool. Now, tell me about the vegetables that you grow. What's the difference between your vegetables that you grow and the vegetables that you would find in a supermarket or in a big chain supermarket someplace?
Yeah, sure. So you definitely have to be like strategic when you're growing on such a small piece of land like I am, right? Like you can't grow corn, right? If I just grew it all to corn, I would probably make like a couple $1,000s a year, right? You get like one shot, you grow your corn crop. Maybe you could get two crops out of a year. I don't think so, though, typically. Um,
Down south, maybe, but yeah, not in
yeah,
Canada for sure.
yeah, right. So uh, to make a profit, you have to focus on fast growing crops and turning those over multiple times. And so the salad greens falls into that perfectly. So like I'm typically transplanting using the paper pot transplanter. So like in this type of heat, I mean, there's other methods that needs to be used to protect it from the heat. I do grow it all summer long, but it takes 4 weeks in the ground, right? So I plant them for 4 weeks in the seed trays using paper pot transplanter, and then I transplant it and it's in the ground for 4 weeks, and I harvest it and I plant arugula. And that's kind of the rotation: lettuce and arugula, lettuce and arugula. This whole quarter acre back here was just successions of lettuce and arugula from February until basically May, and we still do it. We've just added like cherry tomatoes, cucumbers, and some other things, and kind of scale back on the lettuce a little bit. Um, and then and that puts you in a position to grow local salad greens, because when you buy salad greens from the store or off the truck, the shelf life is next to nothing, right? Like people don't believe me when I tell them that these salad greens can last 4 weeks in your refrigerator, because they're used to buying it at the grocery store or off the truck, and it's more like 3 to 4 days, not 3 to 4 weeks. And so if you have to find the people who find value in that, because I'm in Tennessee, so it's sometimes not clear to me, because this is like one of the lowest cost of living states in America. But I charge $13 a pound for the salad greens, which is a pretty high price, I think, no matter where you live. But living in the South, it's definitely a high price. And some of my like farmer friends are just like, I don't know how you do it, dude. I don't know how you get those kind of prices. But it's not for everybody. You have to find the people who find the value in that. They find the value in a product that is fresher off the truck, and they're willing to pay more, but there's no waste, because like how much are they throwing out every week of the stuff that comes off the truck? So it really does provide an equal value, but when you're dealing with like high-end chefs, like they're looking for the higher quality product anyways, and they're willing to pay more for it. So it's less about like trying to convince people that your product's worth it and more trying to find the people that find value in it. And I am super fortunate that I have like one client basically that buys 50% of everything I grow, and it's just like a huge luxury resort. So like anybody trying to get into like restaurants, I would recommend, well, I guess there's you do want to start small, but once you get to a certain size, like go for the big guys that are going to take everything you got, you know what I mean? And you don't have to deal with $50 here, $50 there. I mean, these people buy $2,500 worth of veggies from me every single week, and yeah, gladly sell it to them.
Absolutely. I hear you and I understand you and I agree with you because I did it for since I was 5 years old. And yeah, absolutely. And when it comes to the quality, you're 100% bang on. I used to say to my customers all the time, I would say, buy my tomatoes, and they would say why? And they tasted like tomatoes, not like cardboard. They were really good tomatoes. And I would say to them, I guarantee them the week. If they go bad before the week is up, you eat what you can, compost the rest. I replace them up, no questions asked, because I just knew my tomatoes were that good. I knew that the shelf life was that good. I knew that I had faith in my product. And so same thing with you. You've got faith in your product that it's a high quality, good product. And I mean, once in a while, if something goes sideways and I'd throw a bag of tomatoes here or a bag of tomatoes there, but I stood behind my customers. It was a relationship. And that's the thing with local is you're actually shaking the hands of the person that grew it and the person that's going to eat it or use it. And it's a relationship. It's more than just a transaction. It's about relationship. And when you've got high quality, good produce, nothing beats it. And the other thing is with the taste and the flavor, like good ingredients make good food and bad ingredients make bad food. And so I would say to the customers too, like when they got something off the back of the truck or they picked something up at a store and they put it in their fridge and 3 days later it was not edible. Well, they just lost all of their money, 100% of their money. Whereas you can't lose buying direct from a farmer, right? Like if you had that one customer that came back and said, "Oh, the greens went off," I know you would probably replace that bag up because it's not about the bag. It's not about that $4 or $5 or $6. I did one for 6, 5 for 25, mix and match on my vegetables, and they weren't big bags, but it was more about the relationship. And they never lost. They could always eat their produce. Like there was never a time that their produce went to waste. It's because it was fresh and it was high quality and there was relationship there.
Absolutely. There's also the flip side of that where like there's customers who no matter what, they're just going to see the price you throw at them. They're not going to see the value, they're used to paying $7 a pound for lettuce, and if you tell them 13, they don't care if they throw out half of it. They just see the price, they don't see the value. And I got so many friends that just insist on chasing those customers, I'm like, dude, don't even waste your time. You're not going to turn those people. You got to find the right customers, not try to convince those customers.
For sure. I went to farmers markets. I remember talking to people and they would say, "Oh, those are expensive tomatoes." And I'd say, I'd pull all my tricks out of my bag, talking about like the value and the price and why, and, that there's no risk. And one time I had a farmer, it was really interesting. I had a farmer walk up to my table and they said, "Well, those are really high priced." And I said, "Well, it takes a lot to farm and it costs a lot. And, like I have to have a couple of bucks at the end of the day. Cause in farming, I know you're not rich. Like you definitely are not, probably not a rich man. You're a farmer." So we had this conversation, and through this conversation, this farmer said that she's a farmer. And so we ended up talking agriculture and pricing, and we talked all these things. And at the end of the conversation, I said, "So are you interested in a bag of tomatoes?" And she's like, "Nope." And I just said to her, I said, "That's fine. Go buy the Walmart ones." And I walked away, which was so mouthy. But I'm like, if that's what you want, go and get it. Like I cannot, you're not my person. You're not my tribe. You're not my people. You're not my, go ahead, go eat that shit. So
That's right. And that's the majority of people. I mean, most people eat out of a box. They don't even know what a vegetable is. Or they know that they know that they like, it amazes me the people sometimes at the farmers market. One instance in particular, I had these huge celeries like laying on my table with a sign on it that said celery, and this girl walks up. She knows she likes celery, but she doesn't know what celery looks like. So she's standing there looking at these huge celeries with a sign. She sees the sign. She goes, "Which one's the celery?" Like, are you kidding me, lady? You know what I mean? People eat out of a box, so they eat like a frozen dinner. They know it's got celery in it and they liked it. You know, they know that, but they don't know what to do with a big giant head of celery, or they don't even know what a big giant head of celery looks like. And most people don't, because in the store, the celery's like the leaves are cut off, it's packaged up, you're just buying like the stalks. Most people don't know what it looks like on the plant. Or like Brussels sprouts is another good example, right? Most people have no idea how Brussels sprouts actually grow. People are just so disconnected from their food to begin with. You know, you're like, Target is like the 10% of people that actually cook at home and like enjoy fresh vegetables, you know?
That's where I feel like we need to get back to. We need more education and more people like you. I think we need more urban farmers. We need more people. We need more of Mike. That's what the world needs is we need
Yeah.
more of Mike. You're a character and we need more food like you're doing. And when you connect people, we need to get back to the 50s. You know, in the 50s, my grandparents, you know, they knew their farmers and they all had a garden in their backyard and they all grew and they all cooked at home. And, you know, it was more of a thing. McDonald's was way less back then. It was more of a treat, you know, even for myself growing up in the 80s and 90s, you know, going out to eat was a treat. It wasn't, you know, a daily habit. Whereas I feel like we've flipped, you know, in North America here, we flipped that upside down to, you know, macaroni comes out of a box and cereal comes out of a box and you add milk or you get your oat milk. I don't know. I milk my goats. I've got goats now, but you know, like they're so disconnected from the food and we need more people just connecting back to the food. And I think the more we just have conversations and more of you, you know, like I think we'll get back to that place. Can remember in 2020. Were you a farmer in 2020?
I was like trying to become a farmer in 2020, and all the things kind of happened, right? And I decided to proceed. I was like, screw it, I'm doing it, you know? And I just kept going.
So I remember in 2020, we had the toilet paper wars here in Canada. I don't know if you had that in the States or not, but we had the toilet paper. Okay, you did. We had the toilet paper wars, and people were genuinely concerned about where their food was coming from. And I had people coming up to me saying, "You've got food, right?" And I'd say, "Yes, I've got food. Like, don't worry about it. I've got you. Like, don't worry about it." And so, how did I'm just curious, how did 2020 play into your farm? Because if you're just brand new getting into it, what did that do for you as a person and as a farmer?
Right. I thought about giving up, right? Like all the crazy things going on in the world. Like, man, I'm trying to start this farm, this business, right? This is my way out of this cubicle. Maybe I just need to quit and just take it easy for a minute and see what happens. But you know, I was fortunate that the people who owned the company I worked for were supportive and even kind of like my best customers. And they just kind of loved me in a way they don't necessarily love all of their employees. And they kind of turned a blind eye and looked the other way as I was slinging veggies from under my desk at work. I would imagine they would probably have not been so lenient with certain people. But for me, for whatever reason, they just looked the other way and said, "Hey, let me buy some of that," you know. And you know, that was like, I mean, when it started, that's kind of how it started, right? I was just sneaking big coolers in under my desk at work, and sometimes I'd sell like it's a pretty big company. There's 200 to 300 employees back then. I think it's even bigger now. So like I would sell $200 to $300 a week worth of veggies just from under my desk, you know, and just take all that money and reinvest it. And I think around that time too, I just started like making posts on Facebook saying like what I was doing. And I always did that from the beginning. I think that's super important for anybody who wants to like start a small scale farm or anything like that. Like document your journey and post it on social media. Because when people find out who you are, that's the first thing they're going to do. They're going to go look at your social media account and then they're going to be like, oh, wow, this is cool. I want that, you know? And that's really how my business kind of grew. I was posting things for sale. The people would order it, and typically it was people from work. So they'd place the orders off my Facebook and I'd bring it to work. But, you know, there was other people who I used to work with and things like that. They were like stopping by the house. Some neighbors started to notice, came knocking on the doors. And then a couple chefs noticed my Instagram, and they reached out and started wanting to buy stuff. And that's kind of when I was like, okay, like I think I can actually move some serious product like with these guys. And one of those guys is still one of my best customers today. They buy about uh 20 to 30 pounds of lettuce, anywhere from 20 to 40 pounds of arugula, 30 pounds of kale, and kind of anything else that I have kicking around sometimes every single week for the last 5 years. And they just kind of found my Instagram one day and asked if they could buy stuff. And I still work with them today, which goes back to like, keeping those relationships. It's not easy. So you piss somebody off or something like that, it's just go back to buying stuff off the truck.
Yeah, I do have a hot temper, so I have burned a couple of bridges in my life, but I mean, what farmer probably doesn't? But I love that story of slinging vegetables underneath your desk because that's how it starts. So I do coaching. I actually am coaching people how to do farm to table sales. And so that's where I'm headed to with my business. I don't farm anymore, but I know how to do it. I know how to grow food. I know how to sell it. I know all the like that's what I do. And so I'm teaching people now. And that's the biggest thing is to take things that you have and go to your community around you. You had coolers under your desk and you had access to 200 people, that are potential customers, and you were slinging vegetables at work, double dutying it while you're at work and doing your farming thing. And that's where it's at, and that's how you have to start. You have to start with those baby steps and go within your communities and reach out and then grow bigger and then grow bigger and then grow bigger. And next thing you know, you've got 5 employees and 2 plots and a fun hat and a salad or greens harvester in the background, and you're on some lady's podcast. And the YouTube part, I agreed. Like hindsight, I will tell you one of my mistakes. Hindsight, I should have documented more of my journey as a farmer. I bought my ex-husband out. I was a single mama farmer. I should have done more of the social media side. I should have done more of the documenting. I should have been a reality TV personality. I said that over and over, but I just didn't have the way to do the other end of the camera. So, but that's one of the hindsights. And so you did it right from start. You did the social media, you did the, with your community, and you've just branched out and you're building an empire. And I'm so proud of you. Like I saw your post. That's how I found you. One of your posts came across one of my feeds, and I was like, I want this guy on my show. So I'm actually honored that you would be here with me today. So thank you for your time.
Oh, heck yeah. I appreciate it. I think, sometimes I like to use my YouTube channel. I mean, it's not huge, but it's growing. I mean, I think I just hit 37,000 subscribers today. And I mean, that's decent. But I like to use the channel to like try to help my friends too. You know what I mean? If I can help promote my friends to get seen and things like that, that type of thing is more important to me than the money. I mean, the money is important too, but I mean, you wouldn't believe the types of like businesses that reach out to me and want me to promote their products on my YouTube channel. Like, I get the heck out of here. I'd rather just be on a podcast.
I love it. Well, the greens harvester, they should reach out to you and do something like that. But yeah, no, you're right. And it brings it back. Like that just shows your heart. And that's the heart of a farmer. Is someone who wants to help others. And along my farming journey, I had lots of people come alongside me and help me. You mentioned Curtis Stone, he didn't help me, but I had other farmers within my circles that told me you should grow your potatoes like this. And I grew corn. So you should grow your corn like this. You should grow your tomatoes like this. In the greenhouse industry, prune like this. Doing all of those things. I had people, my competition, quote unquote competition, sometimes at farmers markets would teach me how to grow food. And that's where it's at really, is when you build community and you build those relationships and you work with one another, and you've had that, and now you're able to give back to others. And, that just shows the heart of who you are as a person and who you are as a business owner, and you will fly. I know that. Yeah.
Yeah, one of my best friends is my biggest competitor, I would say. We share a lot of the same restaurant clients. He's two booths down from me at the farmers market. I went to farmers markets for like the first few years, and then last year I just couldn't keep up with the demand anymore, and I just quit around July or August of last year, and I didn't go to farmers markets, but I did go for 6 weeks in May and June this year. And so my last farmers market of the year was a couple weeks ago, and I just go back to restaurant sales now. But yeah, I was a customer at the farmers market for years. We shopped there every weekend. And so before I started my farm, I started telling people that I wanted to start a farm, and I got started talking to the farmers. And now many of those people are some of my best friends. And, I made a lot of friendships and jobs and things, all kinds of things I've been involved in throughout my life and careers. But some of the strongest relationships I've ever made are some of the other farmers market vendors. It's a tight
Yeah,
family.
absolutely. Yeah, for sure. I've got the same thing. One of the things that I did last summer was I actually didn't go to for the first summer in probably 12 years. I didn't go to a farmer's market, and it was hard. But the first farmer's market I went back to, I actually walked through the farmer's market and I just burst into tears over and over and over again because those were my people. And so now this year I've got eggs and I've got chickens and I'm back at the farmer's markets and the customers are recognizing me and the vendors and everybody, and it fills my cup again, and I love it. I used to be known as the tomato lady, and now I'm the chicken lady or the egg lady. So it's so much fun. The point is, it's food for people. Now, I do have a question for you. So up here in Canada, we actually have a lot of farmers markets, but what tends to happen at farmers markets is people will buy and sell produce, and they'll buy and sell it as farm direct, but it really isn't. It's the stuff that you'd buy in a grocery store, and it's being sold as farm direct. Do you struggle with that as well? Like, I had to explain to people, no, I grew this in my backyard. I have it, it's mine. Like, I'm the farmer. This is one-stop shop. Like, it's direct from my backyard to your kitchen. And so do you struggle with that at all down there? People reselling produce?
So I'm very fortunate. And it's not by accident, though. I mean, it's on purpose. The farmers market that I attend is a producer only farmers market. It's the biggest farmers market in Tennessee. There's 160 vendors with around 8,000 people of foot traffic every week. I attended this farmers market weekly for years before I even ever thought about growing food. I knew the people, I knew the market, I knew the gaps in the market, I studied them. I did not just choose any random farmers market down the road where that probably is an issue. This farmers market is very strict. They do not let anybody in there that they come to your farm to make sure you're growing what you say you're growing. And they will not let anybody in the market that is not growing food within a 150-mile radius. So that's pretty big. I mean, some people drive down from Kentucky to go to this market because it's so good. But there's something that you want to think about before you sign up for a market. I see a lot of people like on that Facebook group that the Market Gardener Success Facebook group, with those types of questions, but it's like those are the types of things you want to figure out before you attend to that market. I think, you want to find the markets that are going to be a good fit for you. So I do not struggle with that. No, but I totally understand where that could be an issue.
For sure. And to be honest with you, it's the reason that I'm no longer farming. I was $100,000 short the last year that I was vegetable farming. And it's because I was competing at many, many different farmers markets against many, many different vendors who bought and sold produce from the biggest warehouse in my province for cheaper than what I could grow and sell it for. And it was unfortunate, right? And I had been calling out our food system for years that in the name of health and safety, bureaucracy, government, blah, 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 that we're going to have a problem with our food system. And here we are, however many years later, and it happened. I pulled out of selling at grocery stores back in 2018, I think, or something like that, 2017, something like that. And predominantly only sold at farmers markets, and then And then even there, it caught up with me. And so, yeah, I've been calling the system out for years. We need more farmers like you. We need more farm to table. We need more people understanding where their food comes from and shaking the hands of people that feed them.
Yeah. And I'm sure that does happen at the market that I'm at. So, I'm sure people buy stuff and resell it and, slip some things through the cracks. I mean, I'm sure there's a little bit of that going on, but I mean, for the most part, I mean, everybody at that market is pretty solid. I mean, like vegetable growers, there's like craft vendors and all the things, the girls selling earrings and soaps and all those types of things also. But, they will kick those people right out as soon as there's a new vegetable grower. They want people growing vegetables there, the people that are growing the vegetables. And so, I mean, I know pretty much all of the vegetable growers. And if I don't, they typically know who I am from the YouTube channel. And everybody's kind of on the same page. It's an outstanding community. I'm super fortunate. And it's weird. Like, I didn't think that I would find that in Knoxville, Tennessee, but there is just this insane, huge, outstanding farmers market that is very, very well run, right here in our city. And, and we can get like fairly high prices at that market, which, is outstanding for our community. And part of that is that not so the resort that I told you about, that luxury resort that I sell like half of my stuff to, we're like an hour away from the Smoky Mountains. So I do drive an hour away to my biggest customer. But this resort, it's called like Blackberry Farm and Blackberry Mountain, and they're like super prestigious. It costs outrageous money to stay there. Like A-list celebrities stay there. And so the chefs that work there, it's like the type of place you like go get an internship there, and then you can just work anywhere in the world for the rest of your life when you have that on your resume. So like a lot of my other clients in town are came from that resort, came into town, opened their own restaurants in town. So that's partially like why we have such a good, like big local food scene here, is because a lot of these like big name chefs that came from that resort come to town, and they are looking for the types of things that people like me have.
Absolutely. And that comes back to the community thing. We can't say that word on my podcast. I don't even know how many times I say that word community, 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 because it's about relationship. And, that's where we need to get our food back to, is the relationship. Shake the hand of the person that feeds you and grow a little in your backyard. I actually don't think that I don't think that we should ever import lettuce from anywhere in the world ever. Even here in Canada, because we can grow it ourselves. There is no reason, when you're in Knoxville, Tennessee, go get your lettuce. And when you're in, Calgary, Alberta, go get the Calgary lettuce, or the Olds lettuce or the Didsbury lettuce, like it's just so important to just know we just shouldn't have to ship these things all across the world. It's just crazy to me. No.
That I remember like an instance, particularly when I was a chef at like the amusement park resort, that I was like cutting up a red bell pepper, and I looked at it and it's got this sticker on it and it says product of Peru. And I'm like, why the heck is my bell pepper come from Peru? Like, why doesn't somebody grow a bell pepper here in Tennessee? I mean, it can't be that hard. And I remember that specifically as like one of the moments where I thought like, man, I should just grow food. And it wasn't long after that I started gardening. But yeah, I mean, like, what the heck?
Yeah. Well, and then it's seasonal eating as well, like that's the thing that people need to know, is that there's seasonal eating. It's your season's a little different there than it is up here in Canada, but the point is you still get things in season. Here in Canada, we eat our asparagus in, May, June, and we eat our corn in August, September. That's when you get it. That's when I get my fill of corn, and then I don't eat corn again till the next year. And so, yeah, like what's some of your seasonality down there? Can you tell me a little bit about that? Because I'm curious.
Yeah, it probably gets way colder than you think it does, because when I moved here from Vermont, I was like, dude, I'm not going to need winter coats or anything. I thought I was like moving to the tropics, but it is not the case. So like winters like can be mild I'm in East Tennessee, which I've never really been to West Tennessee. So like Nashville's in the center of the state. Memphis is in West Tennessee. That's like 8 or 9 hour drive from where I'm at in East Tennessee by North Carolina. So like I'm in very close to what they call the Smoky Mountains, which is part of the Appalachian Mountain range. And I mean, some winters, it's almost like when I was just gardening as a hobby, the winters were super mild and it was like I remember those years, kind of like a few years in a row, the lowest temperatures we got was about 12 degrees Fahrenheit. But the past, like, kind of 3, 4, 5 years, we've definitely gotten down to like 0 and -0. But like, it only gets to that for like, we'll have like 1 week of like that really cold, just enough to kill all your lettuce and stuff. And then it'll like warm back up a little bit. And then, like, typically by February, it's starting to warm up a little bit. And I think like I've tried to like every year I start planting stuff a little bit later because like it's like you can grow stuff all winter here, especially with the high tunnels. I'll put row covers over things inside the high tunnel, and that can get me through some really cold nights, but it's just stressful and a headache. So I think this year I'm probably like I do pretty good like up to close to Christmas time, so, like I harvest all those fall crops and everything, and my sales stay decent like through like Thanksgiving and pretty close up to Christmas time. And then I plant garlic around Christmas time, and that just like signifies the year's done. You know what I mean? And I think I'm just gonna not do anything until mid-February this year. In the past, I've tried to just grow all winter, and it's just like, it's not worth the headache. It's possible for sure, but a lot of row covers, and like, I mean, some people like have heated high tunnels, but I'm just the low tech guy with Farmer's Friend Caterpillar tunnels. They'll protect you from the frost, but they're not going to protect you from like a hard freeze. But yeah, I mean, kind of mild winters, but we do get that 1 to 2 weeks where like it gets cold, usually around like sometime in January. I just say summer's hot as heck. I mean, it's like 100 degrees all last week, and it's kind of like highs in the 90s this week, which is like feels like a relief from the hundreds. But yeah, summers are hot and humid, and it's like we get a lot of rain in Tennessee, but then like once July and August hits, it like never rains again until September.
Hey friends, on Dawn's Dirt, we get real about growing food, farming, homesteading, living free, and digging into the stuff that actually matters. If you're loving the dirt we're dishing out, don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow on your favorite social media platforms. That's how we keep growing this community of badass, soil-covered, chicken-loving, freedom-chasing humans. Like and subscribe to me on Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, you name it. Come be part of the movement. Okay, so there's a question. Well, first I got to tell you, my natural gas bill, I was in my greenhouse, or I had my greenhouse, $12,000 for 1 month in the month of January is what I paid for natural gas, in my greenhouse. And I was a little greenhouse for the industry. So that's Canadian climate is, high natural gas bills to grow in the greenhouse, which is why I love what you're doing, is because you don't have the gas bill. And I don't even think that you need a gas bill in if we eat seasonally. But anyways, that's a little sidebar. But I was going to ask you, how do you grow in the summertime? So you're growing predominantly greens, but greens are a cool weather crop. They like it nice and cool. They don't like it too hot. They don't like the sun too much. How do you do that in the summertime?
Yeah. So I start salmonella lettuce. So first is a variety. You got to choose the right varieties. Not all lettuce will grow in the middle of the summer or in the middle of the winter. You got to choose heat tolerant varieties. So that's step number one. Step number two is, lettuce seeds won't really germinate in the heat. So I start them in my basement. And if I need to, I seed the tray and then I stick it in the refrigerator for 24 hours. And then I pull it out and then I let them germinate for 3 days with no light in the basement, where it kind of stays like, around 70 degrees in the basement of the house. Once the seeds sprout, then I can take them outside and it's okay. And then I've got a Farmer's Friend caterpillar tunnel as my nursery. So there's no garden beds in there. The whole floor is just like a foot deep of wood chips. That's what we're walking on. And I've just got pallets propped up on cinder blocks. And those are my nursery benches for now. And so then I bring them out there and I grow the seedlings, but when I have a little system on my high tunnel with a 50% shade cloth and ropes. So every morning I pull the shade cloth down so that it lays on the ground so that they can, all my little baby seedlings can get morning sunlight. But then usually by noontime, but like if I'm busy or something, then like definitely by like 2 PM, I'm pulling those ropes up to slide the 50% shade cloth over the top to protect it from the heat and the harsh rays of the sun, because otherwise it'll just like fry those little baby seedlings pretty easily if you're not paying attention, because they need a lot of water. So like by doing that too reduces the amount of water that I need. And then I use a paper pot transplanter. So that's not necessary, but it's important for me because it means I can do the task fast. So when it comes to planting, I bottom water the trays and get them completely saturated and waterlogged before I plant them. I plant them at like 6 o'clock in the morning. And my rule is after 9 a.m. If it doesn't get done before 9 a.m., it's not getting done. So it has to be done first thing in the morning. Then I use a paper pot transplanter so I can get done quickly because at peak season, we're doing 1,200 lettuce heads a week. So it's a lot to plant in between 6 a.m. and 9 a.m. sometimes. So bed prep done the day before is typically necessary. And so after I transplant, then I put little hoops over with shade cloth immediately. Again, it has to be done by 9 a.m. And then have a new irrigation system I'll tell you about in just a moment. But the shade cloth stays on for 2 weeks. And like I mentioned with the nursery, how I pull the shade cloth up and down like every day, that's important because if I just leave the shade cloth on, then the seedlings get leggy and they'll stretch because they'll be starved for sunlight. So it's important that they get that direct morning sunlight. So shade cloth is a great tool, but it's just that. It's a tool. It's not a solution. And it's the same thing if I just leave the shade cloth on the lettuce the whole time it grows. So the shade cloth is a tool to let the lettuce get established in the heat, but I can't leave it on the whole time or the heads will never weigh anything. Basically, they get leggy and they just have no weight to them. So when you go to sell them, the heads are floppy and they don't weigh anything. So I leave it on there for 2 weeks. And then after 2 weeks, the plants are nice and established and I can remove the shade cloth. And because they're heat tolerant varieties, they'll tolerate the heat once they're established. But if you don't do that, they'll just die when you transplant them. But so then in the past, I did a lot of hand watering, just going out there with a hose and just spraying it with a hose, but that's for the birds. So I know overhead irrigation, drip irrigation are kind of like standards for people, but so I've started using something, it's called the Sumi Soaker. And it's basically a big, like it eliminated all my drip and overhead. It's like a fire hose, and I just lay it in the pathway of the of the beds, and it sprays water up and every way, 15 feet on each side and straight up in the air in all kinds of different patterns. But it's a perfect rectangular pattern, so all the water stays in the garden, unlike a wobbler sprinkler head or something that just spins in a circular pattern and kind of sprays water everywhere except where you want it. And drip irrigation doesn't really help you get your lettuce established either. So this year I'm using the Sumi soakers, which is great. I can just plant it and set those things off on timers. They spray a beautiful mist and help the plants get established. And then after I take the shade cloth off, I have everything like fully automated this year, which is great. but I can control it all from my phone. So when it's super hot out, like a couple times a day, I'll just run those sumi soakers for 5 or 10 minutes and just let them mist the lettuce. And during the heat of the day, I'm not watering the plant. I'm just getting that water on it so that the water is evaporating off the plant and not the plant getting stressed out. So those are kind of the key steps right there. Like the shade cloth, I guess, is the major key, and then the misting during the heat of the day to keep them cooled down. That kind of helps them not bolt so fast and get bitter.
Wow. Interesting. And as you're talking, like I know I can picture it all in my head and I'm following along with you, and you create a great, I think that's why you're so successful, is because you're able to like really explain it all and really, show people this is what you do and this is how you do it. And yeah, I love it. Yeah, really cool. Cool. So we're almost at the top of the hour here, and yeah, this has just flown by. I could probably talk to you for hours and hours and hours, but I just want
Yeah.
to be conscious of your time because you've got work to do. I'm sure you're a farmer, and so yeah. Any last minute advice that you would give? Like, if you could go back to yourself 5 years ago, 6 years ago, what would you do different? What would be the advice that you would give? Just to end it off here.
Hire help sooner. I think
Okay, interesting.
I think too many people try to do this by themselves. And, I see like a lot of people online, like almost, you can tell they're about to quit. And, like I'm active on like Facebook groups, gardening Facebook groups and market gardening Facebook groups. And I see people all the time, like asking, like, what do people do about burnout, this and that. And, you can just tell that these people are trying to do all this work themselves because, like you said, I mean, we're not making a lot of money, but the truth is, you will make more money if you hire some help, and it won't suck so bad. Um, because you can do more. Like some days I don't really do anything. Like when I had 5 people here working, like I'm not doing anything. Like I've got 5 people doing everything for me. I just have to coach them. But then the work of 5 people is getting done just the way I want it because I'm instructing these people how to do things just the way that I would do it. And, if that seems like not possible, like, I mean, like starting small is huge, right? Like I started in a 4x8 raised foot bed that I made out of wood, and I grew it from there. I invested $300 a week for hundreds of weeks. You know what I mean? I just like kept reinvesting. But I think once you get past like the 4x8 garden, or you know what I mean, like once you get into like a 50-foot garden bed or anything like that, like hiring help is the only way to grow your businesses. Otherwise, I mean, you're just gonna run around in circles all day. And what happens when you need a day off, or so you can't do something for some reason? Yeah, I should have hired help sooner.
That's great advice, and I'm the girl that didn't hire help. Like, well, we had help, but yeah, like I did a lot, and I've burnt myself out over the years, and I'm doing it again. But yeah, you're right. Hire the help, get some help, because you just work faster and you work more efficiently. Yeah, absolutely.
I was just gonna say one thing that I did learn about like hiring help, because I get it, like things can go bad and then it just costs you money. So in that regard, I learned that if I do the planting, then and I'm not paying people to do the planting, and this is why I only direct seed or use the paper pot transplanter. I'm not hand transplanting anything really, right? I just dump seeds in a seeder, run it up and down the bed, plant carrots, radishes. I guess we never talked about that because like outside of the lettuce, really what I grow is like carrots, beets, radishes, things that can store well too, and also grow fast. But so I found that if I paid people to like do the planting and the crop failed for whatever reason, then I'm out the money that I paid that person to plant it, all the time and labor to raise the crop, and then we never got to harvest it and make any money. So it's a complete loss. But I found that if I'm the one who does the majority of the actual planting, then I don't really pay anybody until we're harvesting the crop. So when I say I had 5 people working for me for the past several weeks, it was to do the harvesting of the carrots, the garlic, the big harvests of the year, basically, because at that point I already knew that we were going to make money. So that's what I'm really paying people for. I got a girl who washes all my salad greens full time and does all the deliveries. But yeah, I guess you can get in trouble if you're paying somebody to do the planting and it doesn't work out and you never make money in the end. So that's something that I learned and I would be cautious of.
That is such great advice and so smart. So smart. When I had my farm, I had people doing all of it because I couldn't do it. I did mostly the sales side of it. But yeah, that is so smart on your part to only pay for the finished product because you know that you're going to get paid for it. So unless your cooler goes down or something like, I mean, shit always happens.
Yeah.
It's farming, but you know, high roller gambling. That's what I always say. It's high roller gambling is this whole farming venture. So thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate this. So how can my listeners find you?
Yeah, I mean, the best way is follow along on YouTube. So, Chef's Harvest Farm on YouTube. I mean, that channel will grow fast. I've been recording a ton of content and just hired 3 video editors. I haven't put out a video in probably like 5 or 6 weeks, but I've got 3 videos at the video editor right now and about 10 in the works. And my busy part of the season's over, so we're just going to start cranking out YouTube videos here and blow that up. And then I do have Instagram also at Chef's Harvest Farm LLC on Instagram. And those are the best ways to follow along.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much. Thanks for your time.